Hey everyone, this is our lesson comparing mitosis, meiosis, and reproduction. So by the end of this lesson, you should be able to analyze how cells grow and reproduce in terms of interphase, mitosis, and cytokinesis. So first, let's just do a quick review of mitosis versus meiosis. And those names are very similar, so make sure you do know the difference. So mitosis is our basic body cell reproduction. So mitosis produces two cells with the exact same number of chromosomes. So it does this through asexual reproduction. So as you could tell in this little GIF over here, it's one cell that splits itself into two with the same number of chromosomes. Whereas meiosis is cell division that produces cells with half the number of chromosomes as the parent original cells. So as you can tell in the meiosis GIF here, it splits off into two, which had a little bit of recombination, which is why the colors have changed. And then it splits off again into two with more recombination, more color change. So you can see all of this happening. And then the original organism cell started with 46 and each then split off into 23. And this is the ones that's used for sexual reproduction. So now let's talk about that sexual reproduction versus asexual. So sexual reproduction is the type in which the genetic material comes from two different cells, two different organisms are offering in that information. And this will be what produces an offspring. So the cells that combine are called sex cells or gametes. From the female is the egg, and from the male is the sperm. And then fertilization is an egg cell and a sperm cell when they join together and they're allowed to start going through the cell cycle. And the new cell that's formed after fertilization is known as a zygote. So there are advantages and disadvantages to this. So some advantages are the fact that it allows for diverse offspring. So genetic variation, which we know is important for survival. Half of the DNA comes from the mom and the other half comes from the dad. And due to genetic variation, individuals within a population will have slight differences so they can adjust accordingly. So plants, they can start to resist diseases. Animals, this allows for the possibility of survival in any changing environment. Possibility, not guarantee. And then this also gives us traits which can develop to resist harsh environments that allow an organism to survive, in which they normally would not. This also can lead to selective breeding. So think about like dog breeds. You know, we have like golden doodles now, which are crossbreeds between golden retrievers and poodles. That's like an idea of selective breeding. It's also how you can get things with desirable traits. So Belgian blue cows, where they're all muscle, things like that. So these are used to develop many types of plants and animals that have the desirable effects or traits that the owner wants. For agriculture and farming, it leads to better plants, larger animals, so more meat, or desirable pets, like I said, for crossbreeding in dogs. There are some disadvantages to this. Time and energy. For humans to reproduce and make a new human, it takes 9 months. Elephants takes a year, it takes time, takes energy. Organisms have to grow and develop until they are old enough to produce sex cells as well. We do not start off producing these. We have the capability to do that. And I know in females, you do have the eggs, the total number of eggs in your body, and you do not make more. But they are not able to be used for reproduction until a specific age and your body has developed to that specific time. You also have to find a mate to reproduce with. That takes time. And searching can expose individuals to predators, diseases, and harsh environmental conditions. So think about animals that live in places where they already struggle to survive. Now they're having to find a mate to create offspring. And this leads to a lot of endangered species and oh, here, let me squish this down. Endangered species and extinct species because time has run out to find a mate and have a viable offspring. And then fertilization, let me X out of this again. Fertilization cannot take place during pregnancy, which can last as long as 2 years for some mammals. So you can't be set to reproduce again while you're already in a gestation for a pregnancy. So now let's get into asexual reproduction. So asexual means you only have one parent, so the organism produces an offspring without fertilization, and you have a uniform offspring. So instead, you have one parent or mother cell creates two identical daughter cells that look just like the original mother cell. And there are different types of asexual reproduction, which we'll talk about. And we have binary fission or fission, budding, regeneration, and vegetative propagation. So first, let's talk about fission and budding. So fission is where the cell division in prokaryotes, and it forms two genetically identical cells. So what you just saw in the previous GIF. This is very similar to mitosis. Your DNA is copied. The cells begin to grow larger, pulling two copies to each pole. And then the cell membrane pinches inward in the middle of the cells so that it can divide into two separate identical cells. Some examples that go through binary fission are bacteria, E. coli, and paramecium. Then we also have budding. And budding is a new organism that grows by mitosis and cell division on the body of its parent. So this is something that will bud off of its original parent. So you can think of plants like flowers that bud. The bud or the offspring is identical to the parent. And the bud, when it's large enough, can break off of the parent and live on its own. Offspring may remain attached and form a colony, depending on what type of plant or organism it is. And some examples of this are yeast, hydra, and cacti. These have very, very quick population growth that doubles with every division. So if you start with 2, then you go to 4, then 8, then 16, then 32, and you keep going and going 64. And these get large and large numbers every time. So each one will break off into 2, and then those 2 will break off into 2, and then those 4 will break off into 2 apiece, and you keep going from there. E. coli itself can divide every 20 minutes, which is what makes that such a dangerous disease to be exposed to. Now let's talk about regeneration and vegetative propagation. So regeneration occurs when an offspring grows from a piece of its parent. And we are producing new organisms. So you've got sea stars, okay? So starfish. You can cut off its leg and it will grow a new leg, and then that leg can grow a new starfish itself. Other examples, we've got sea urchins, sea cucumbers, sponges, and planarians. And then with regeneration, you also produce new body parts. So you can think of geckos because their tails will fall off when they get scared or they're in a change of environment and their bodies are stressed. They can grow their tails back. Newts, tadpoles, hydra, and zebrafish are other good examples for regeneration of body parts. Now for vegetative propagation, this is the uniform offspring grow from part of a parent plant. And the parent plant seed sends out runners. Where the runner touches the ground, the roots will grow, and a new plant is produced, even if the runner is broken apart. Each of the new plant is uniform and identical to its parent. So you can think of strawberries, potatoes, ivy, and crabgrass. So if you ever go to like a strawberry field, you can plant one and it will just kind of proceed to move its way through the ground and expand with identical, offspring. So the advantages of asexual reproduction. This enables organisms to reproduce without a mate because it's only one parent. There's no wasted time or energy. So this can happen very quickly, and it enables some organisms to rapidly reproduce a large number of uniform offspring, which would not be viable in sexual reproduction. Disadvantages, though, is that because the offspring are identical, there's no genetic variation that can give an organism a better chance to survive. If something's going to wipe out one of these cells, it's going to wipe out all of them because they are identical. If weed killer can kill the parent, it's going to kill the offspring. And the whole species can be wiped out from a disease, which can lead to extinction. And then we also can sometimes have dangerous mutations in the DNA. If the parent has the mutation in their DNA, the offspring are going to have it as